able to have a conversation around professionalism, designing your brand, really thinking about what that means for you. And so before we jump into that, part of Life Design's goal is to really be able to help you design your life journey to be well and joyful in the ways that you see fit, right? And so that can mean a variety of things, right? And so we don't want to give you that answer. We want you to determine what is well lived and joyful for you, which is why we want to even have this conversation for you to think about that for yourself, right? And so when you think about well lived and joyful, what are you thinking about for yourself? Anybody? No order. What is well lived and joyful for you? What do you mean? What do I mean by that? Well lived and joyful.
Well lived and joyful.
Yeah.
What is joyful?
Yeah, for you. What is joyful? What does it mean living joyfully?
That's being able to impact others.
Impact others, yeah. Make a change, yeah, thank you. Others?
Having work-life balance.
Work-life balance, thank you.
Also being content with the choices and things.
Yeah. Yeah, love it, thank you. Others? Present. Yes, definitely. Come on in. Other things? Being present. Come on in. Other things? Yes.
Living with minimal stress.
Minimal stress. Yes. Managing your stress so it's not as bad, right? I love it. Thank you. All right, love that. We're talking about what does it mean to live joyful. So we've had managed stress, making an impact. What are some other things? Yes.
Financial security.
Say that one more time.
Financial security.
Financial security, yeah, I love it. Right, needed by someone or something, yeah. Yes.
No regrets.
No regrets, yes, love it, okay. Well, cool. Wanted to start with that, right? And so Medina asked earlier, the question about, that'll shut later.
Yeah.
A question about, why did you come today? What did you want to get out of this conversation? So you could all take out your phones. If you don't want to use your phone, I have note cards as well. But what did you want to get out today? Just write a note down in your notes section. What did you want to get out of today's conversation? Yeah, don't be lying because don't nobody see this but you. What did you want to get out of today's conversation? Or what are you curious about from our panelists or even a conversation about professionalism?
You're gonna test our psychic abilities.
Right.
And then you can be like, Sage, you didn't talk about what I wrote down.
Exactly. Okay, and you can keep writing that. I want you to have that for yourself. We will have time for us to have conversation. That means you giving some thoughts about what you heard or even some questions you might raise. This is not my conversation. I'm going to just start it with a question that I'm really curious about, and then it's on to you all to have the conversation. They are here for you, not me. And so I want you all to use this time wisely with them. And so my first question I wanted to ask is, as we think about professionalism, we all show up in certain ways. And I'm a walk for y'all because I chose to wear my outfit for a specific reason. And so I wore a black outfit because oftentimes Black is simplified in some capacity or can be simplified, but you can also jazz it up a little bit, right? And so I specifically wore black also because I got a nice new cute bag.
We got a bag.
So I really thought that this was cool. It actually holds a lot more. I broke my last one, so it was complicated. So I needed a new bag, but I was like, okay, what can I carry that actually elevates my style for myself? And so I decided that I have a day to night outfit today. So, and I got a bow tie on, a sweater. I decided to wear sneakers because I knew I was moving around a lot and they're cute. So I decided to go with that vibe. I could have wore dress shoes, but I was like, I want my sneakers today. And so to kind of think about what that means for you, but also with my sneakers, it's a different night outfit, right? And so I don't have to bring no more other shoes. I literally just go. What I'll do is probably take off the cardigan, take off the bow tie, untuck the shirt, and keep on moving, right? And so being able to accommodate for different environments. So that was my choice and why I decided to show up in this particular way. And so that's what you'll probably only hear from me about my journey, unless they say they want my feedback or suggestions. I'll pass it on to you all, and I will have them introduce themselves. Please introduce your name, how you're affiliated with Hopkins, your pronouns, and how you showed up today and why you showed up the way you did today. And we can go in any order.
Hi, I'm Sage Magnus Hill. I use they, them pronouns. I work as an academic advisor and success coach in the SCOUT program for KSAS. And I'm actually wearing what I wore in my headshot that's on the poster. And not sort of intentional, I stood in my closet for a bit because I have a walk-in closet now, y'all. I like
Yes.
after a life of living in Tupperwares and you know, bins, I have a closet, but I was like, I don't know. But I have an album on my phone of like Sage's fit of the day. So anytime somebody compliments me on an outfit, I just take a picture of that outfit and put it in that photo album so that it cuts down on executive functioning for me. So instead of being like, ooh, what matches with what, it's going down a rabbit hole, I can just be like, okay, I have all these clothes available right now, I'm gonna do that. So this is what I had available. Most of my wardrobe is teals, blues, and purples. So that way I can also mix and match because I live on a budget and that's how I roll. So I did not wear sneakers because I literally drove from my house to here and I'm gonna get in my car and drive home. And then I'm gonna get into the second outfit that I live in, which is my like overly large fuzzy sweatshirt thing with the hood. So my neighbors think that I live with my twin brother because I'm either in the big hoodie thing or I'm like this. So they can't figure out that it's the same person.
Hi, I'm Leila. I am a 2020 Johns Hopkins graduate. I majored in writing SEMS and I minored in Islamic studies. I'm currently a first-year medical student at Harvard. I did a gap year at the NIH, which is in the DC area, and you guys should check that out 100%. Today, so I love the color black. So most of my closet is black. I just think it's, you know, my 6 words was simply timeless with personal flair. And I just feel like, you know, like Clifton was saying, you really can jazz black up. So it's just like my go-to. Over the years though, there's things that are like quirky about me, like my socks. I really like having, like I have, for anyone who's observing Ramadan this month, Ramadan Mubarak, but I have like Ramadan socks on today. And my shoes, I love shoes. I have a lot of shoes. So anytime my clothing black scheme gets disrupted, it's probably by my socks and shoes and then jewelry. That's pretty much it. And for me, it just like, I can take off the jewelry, I can change the socks, I can change the shoes, and it kind of changes the outfit. So I do have other colors though in my closet, but all of them are like muted colors. Like I really like the deep greens, but I do also like pastels, like I like simple things, not a lot of things going on. So that's kind of how I like to dress.
Hi everyone, my name is Medina Sani. I am the Associate Director. What is my job? I am the Associate Director of Programming with the Fly Network, and also the Director of the Hopkins program. My pronouns are she, her, hers, and the question was, why does outfit, what does professional mean?
Why did you show up the way you did?
Yes. Okay, so I'm wearing sneakers as well, similar to Clifton. Comfort is very important to me. You know, I work surprisingly on a college campus, you may or may not know. And I have to walk around every now and then. And I want to be comfortable. I want to be able to focus on what I need to do without worrying about if my feet hurt. I did consider wearing these like faux snakeskin heels that would have looked so cute. But again, like it's 2023, my back hurts all the time. I'm at a stage in life now where I am very confident in myself and my ability to converse with people and share my skill set. So I don't worry so much about looking professional. I'm more concerned about looking neat and well put together, which are very two different things, right? And so like professional used to always mean to me, and I was socialized this way in undergrad, you know, you had to have hard bottom shoes, you had to be wearing like a skirt suit or a pantsuit. You know, I would have, in my earlier years, I would have thought this was too casual. But I recognize that, like, and so one of my older sorority sisters taught me this, like, however you look, that's one way, but how you present is another way. How you speak, how you hold yourself, your body language, that's something else. And so I recognize that I'm able to move and wear things that are a little bit more comfortable and still be professional. I like sneakers, and my favorite colors, or the colors that I wear most often, are typically navy blue or some kind of hunter green with a little splash or something. In this, I have some burgundy. And jewelry, it's always the same. It's my ring, same earrings, and my necklace, which are gold. Yeah.
Thank you. And I didn't introduce myself. I'm Clifton Chambry. I use he, him, his pronouns. I serve as our Associate Director of Life Design. And I like that you all talked about things that are important to you. And so I wonder how that engages with the perceptions of others when we're thinking about how we choose to show up. And so I wonder what that looks like for you. When you're thinking about our world that we live in, how do you navigate what it means to show up and balance showing up for yourself and also expectations of what it might mean to show up in whatever environment you are, whether or not if it's when you're at school or you're working or you're the type of work you're doing. So what does that mean for you?
So I have a complicated relationship with professionalism and just kind of society in general, and the ways that we are expected to show up, kind of what you were saying about skirt suit, pantsuit. I was in the same generation of, like, we were taught you had to have closed-toed shoes. I went to a women's college, which was very like, here's how you have to wear your makeup. And I was like, do you see this? Like, do I look like somebody's gonna do that? And so what I've recognized is I like to challenge the societal norms, but I can't do that if I don't have the access to those spaces. And so my brand is Hot Grandpa. Because we live in a patriarchal society where older men's opinions are valued. And so I kind of figured that out a few years ago, and I was like, you know what, I'm running with it, because again, like, you know, I maybe am not as polished in my behavior and other things. Like Clifton said, you want to talk about professionalism? And I was like, I've literally been dinged on professionalism in every single job I've ever had, because I'm the one in the committee meetings that shoots my mouth off. Because I say what everybody else is thinking, but it's like, oh, I wouldn't have said that. We need to talk about political acumen. But because I appear like this, people say, oh, we need to bring that person to the table. And especially more recently, I've kind of capitalized on the tokenization of the fact that I'm a non-binary queer person, and I present in a very trans-masked way, because people say, you know, we want to believe that everybody is invested in diversity, equity, and inclusion for the right reasons, but we know that that is not true. And so if they're like, oh, well, we forgot to have like an LGBTQ perspective, let's see, Sage, we'll just pull Sage in on this. And then I can say, okay, now I'm at this table. And now I can say, why the F are we doing it this way? Why, like, have we considered the fact that all of this is oppressive in the way that it's presented or whatever? So that's kind of how I show up, is just like, I do dress more up because I know that I gain access to spaces that I can then invite other people to the table using the privileges that I have.
For me, I always think of, I'm a context person. To me, nothing in the world is ever black and white. There's always a reasoning behind something. So if I'm going into any particular space, whether it's work related or social, first thing I'm thinking about is, what is the context of this space? Is this a networking event where I'm intended to go there and talk about my work here at Hopkins or my interests, my professional interests? Or is this a social event where I'm meant to talk about music and Afrobeats and the fact that I really thought that I would be able to dance for forever and I cannot do some of the things that I see on Instagram, and I'm really upset about that. And so when I realize, okay, this is the space I'm going to be in and this is the context, then I think about, okay, how do I want to show up? And really what that means to me is, how can I position myself to be the best me? That makes if that makes sense. Like, all right, if I'm going into a networking event, let's say if it's a higher ed networking event, in general, at higher ed, like conferences, folks wear suits and, pantsuits and things like that. So I might wear like some silk orange pants because I know that that's gonna make me stand out, and then it'll put me in a position where I can talk about whatever it is I'm passionate about. If I were going to say, I don't know, something else, I might dress a lot more muted, right? I might wear cream or black, whatever it might be. It just depends on how do I want to interact with that space. Do I want to intentionally put myself in a position where it calls attention to me and then I can speak, or is this a space where it's not about me? Say a bridal shower, ain't gonna remember to sing that, it's not about me. So I don't need to, or a wedding, I don't need to be the center of attention. So, I'm gonna tone it down. So it's always about context and purpose. What is my purpose for being in that space? Do I need to be someone who's speaking, or do I need to be someone who's listening and observing? And I make sure that, my clothing is reflective of it.
That was wonderfully put. I'm gonna sort of a little bit echo kind of what Medina said, but when you're a student, that anxiety, I run a little anxious. So I like to know what I'm getting into. So I really like to know how I want to show up in the space that I'm getting myself into. And as you grow as a professional here and now through your life, you want to use some of these opportunities as a space for you to grow. And that means really knowing, how do I want to show up in these spaces? What do I want to talk about? Do I want to sit back and listen? You don't always have to be talking. You don't always have to have something to say. You can also listen. And so I think like knowing yourself, knowing what situation you're getting into, then you can kind of define, how do I want to show up in that setting? And that's a really useful skill as you grow older, because sometimes if you show up in the wrong way, or you're talking over, you can miss certain points that you would have gotten out of it. So I think it's really important to be like cognizant of the setting and yourself also in that setting to help yourself grow. So taking those opportunities and growing and using them as a way to reflect and learn about yourself even more. That's not to say that you probably won't mess up. I sure have had, my fair share of spaces where I was like, darn it, I think I missed the point there, or I wish I networked more, or I wish I pushed myself to go up to that person, or I wish I asked that question, or, I wish I said the point I wanted to make, or maybe I should have listened more, maybe there's moments where I'm like, did I talk too much? Did I let them speak? Did I really hear what people were saying in that setting? So, you're young, you're still learning. So use these opportunities to kind of push yourself a little bit, and really figure out, what's going on, and then how do I show up? Like, what does this mean for me?
I'm hearing a lot of good things, but I wonder, does anyone in the room have any aha moments, or now that you have a curiosity, many of you all wrote down some things you're interested in learning more about. I want to bring it to the room to now have a conversation, maybe sharing an aha moment, or maybe you want to ask a question or a curiosity. This is your time. Feel free to join in. Yes, and if you could state your name and pronouns for us, just so that we can use that.
My name's Alyssa, and I use she, hers, hers. And my question is, like, how did you navigate like gaining your independent style out of like what your parents saw for you? Because like as a kid growing up, your parents were like, no, you gotta wear this, and it's like you kind of want to make them happy, and now it's like you're out here.
If it were up to my parents, I'd be wearing a turtleneck up to my nose every day, long sleeve, ankles covered.
Corduroy dress.
Corduroy dress. So for some context, I'm Nigerian. My parents are, traditional Nigerians, and so they're very conservative. Nigerian culture, actually, when you look at the dress, how women dress back home, they're typically often like very covered up. Even though the clothes are fitted, they are not often showing a lot of skin. So in some ways, it was just kind of like pushing back on my parents and kind of just saying like, this is what I'm gonna wear. Something really important. I did so when I wasn't in the house because, housing is important. So I had to manage the context of the situation that I was in. I'm in my parents' house. They want me to show up a certain kind of way. One of the things that was really important is to try to understand their mindset, right? They're thinking, we don't want you to be so exposed that you attract negative attention. There's conversation around that in and of itself. But I recognize that they also generally just wanted me to look good, right? Make sure you present well. That's a big thing. Make sure that when you step outside and people look at you, it's harder for them to make a negative assumption about you because of how you're presented. So make sure that, your clothes fit well, right? Like they're not too big or too small for your size. Make sure that, if your pants have belt loops, that you put a belt on, those kinds of things. And that made sense to me. But there's some things that we just didn't agree on, right? Like my parents for forever thought that I was a kid until I was in my 20s. And I just had to say like, well, this is what I want to wear, mommy. This is what I'm wearing. and that's just it. And I think that, that's with a lot of things that have to do with your parents. As you get older, naturally, they just want to protect you ultimately. But you have to start having conversations with them about what growing up and what independence means for you and what it looks like, while respecting the fact that they ultimately want to protect you and want the best for you. But you have to figure that out. And I think that confidence comes from having success in other areas and other things. When you recognize that you put yourself together and it's like, oh, somebody said this looks nice, or you feel better in this thing and that you feel well presented in, that gives you the confidence to kind of push back a little bit on what your parents may want. And sometimes you also got to show them like Instagram, like, look, this person that you respect is just a similar kind of way. Find somebody that works. Like, don't pick a like Nigerian president or something like that. That's not going to work for you. But find the middle ground, right? It doesn't have to be contentious. Just find the middle ground and then kind of work towards it. So that's what I would say for that.
I would say, I think the first thing is like reflecting upon yourself and kind of the boundaries that you want to set and things that mean to you. You have a relationship with your parents, and as you grow, it's going to keep redefining itself and what that means. And as you grow into your own and, you're in college now, I think sometimes it's hard for parents to understand that, we're out of the house, we're adults now. And so it's like a delicate balance of being like, I'm growing up, I'm becoming my own person. So reflecting a little bit of what does that new relationship with my parents means and how do I want to navigate that? And I think always remembering to stay true to yourself and trying to figure out what that means. And I know sometimes this can seem like very vague terms, but it's purposeful because everyone has, a different relationship they want to navigate with their parents. And, there might be things that might work better in terms of convincing your parents, or, it might have to be like, this is how I want to show up. This is how I want to be when I grow up, or you are grown up, but like when you're talking to your parents, and then just kind of like navigating that convo and kind of figuring out, like how do I present this to them in a way that I'm still staying true to who I am and how I want to show up in my spaces. At the end of the day, you're an adult, you're growing up, so it's going to be hard a little bit also if your parents are very involved in your life to kind of break away from that a little bit. So it's really like honestly just being like, okay, well, how do I want to navigate this? What kind of relationship do I want to build? What are some things that might, your parents best. So what's some things that like might make my mom be like, oh, okay, I see, like, I get your point now, or I see what this means now. And I think also like we're a different generation. What it means to be professional now is probably not the same when they were growing up. So I think also like being like, hey, like I can show up like this right now, like I can wear sneakers to this event, or I can dress this down. It is still professional. It is still me showing up in that space in the way I want to be. And you can also be like, well, I want to be a little different, and that's okay too. So it's just really kind of navigating this whole dynamic of the relationship and also staying true to who you are as a person and who you want to be as you grow.
My mom had her way. I would definitely be dressed in some light yellow floral print dress with a matching cardigan from like 2001, which I get that the trends are coming back, so maybe that would be cool. I don't know. It never looked good on me. But my kind of what Medina was saying, my parents were very focused on how we looked outside the house. You do not look poor. even though we were poor, you do not look poor, you look like you're educated. You look like you have money, which was a challenge in a lot of ways because, you know, we always had to, it was a drive to like always project that we had affluence and wealth when it was not accessible to us at all. And I think about things like my parents opted to just not go to church for an entire year because we didn't have money for nice winter coats. And so instead of going to church without winter coats, you know, with our jacket, like our jackets that we wore everywhere, they just didn't go to church. And I'm like, isn't that defeat the purpose of the going to church, like come as you are thing? Oh, no. So I really wanted to wear, I mean, in high school, college, I wore a lot of big t-shirts and ripped up jeans and I got a lot of flack about like, you look like you can't afford new jeans. And I'm like, but that's the style. And it was like, why money for ripped up jeans? I'm like, well, I didn't pay money. I ripped these jeans up myself. I took my X-Acto blade from my art class and I distressed them myself. You know, I'm not paying $75 for ripped up jeans, but I'm gonna buy my $5 pair from the Goodwill and I'm gonna rip them up. And so, you know, I think it's interesting because I think that my parents, like if they look at me and how I dress now, they're like, yes, that's how to dress. But then they're also have this kind of conflict because they're like, but we also think in a very gendered way. And so like my dad is like, well, that's how I would dress. Like he relates to me on that and he likes to talk to me about fashion. Like he actually gives me his old clothes now and I'm like, sweet, I will take those $40. Those, you know, 40-year-old, $40 leather shoes have holes in them, I'll patch them up. Thanks, Dad. You know, he's like, yeah, cool. But my mom is like, oh, I got married last week and my mom was on the Zoom and she was like, I don't understand why you would wear a suit. And I'm like, you know that me? And like my entire life, and you know who I am. I'm like, it's a 3-piece suit. I paid somebody to tailor this for me, so I didn't have to do it myself because I can now. But I was like, what is this? And everybody else is like, that's super dang good. And I'm like, that's what's up. But that whole emphasis on, you know, looking a certain way, presenting a certain way, and I'm partly a little bit grateful for that because I know how to dress on a budget and I take pride. One of my like fun facts is that I've never paid more than $30 for a piece of clothing or shoes or jewelry or anything. Like that's my threshold, which in this economy, I will wear these clothes until I'm dead. Ain't no way.
Never meet in
But yeah, like I watch YouTube videos about how to patch clothes because I'm like, there ain't no way. But yeah, so it's like, how do you navigate that? How do you look expensive when you don't have the cash to be expensive?
Thank you.
Thank you for the question.
Other questions? Yes, go here and then there.
So how do you go about dressing on a budget? Cause like I typically like shop at like the sales sections, but like in terms of like professional, like to look professional, it's like, how do you kind of just go about?
I love Savers. If you've never been to Savers, like get your friends, get a zip car, go to, it's in like Parkville, Towson area. It's a huge, it's like bigger than this building. It's like a Goodwill, but if Goodwill was very well organized and like the size of a Walmart. And I literally go and everything is organized by size and by thing. So it's like dresses and then you can go and find your size and then you can just flip through. And it's like, you know, I think the most I've ever seen, it's like $10. Yeah. And so I'm literally like, I go and I'm like, here are my shirts. And I'm like, okay, oh, I got a $6 shirt that's from Joseph A. Bank. Great. You know, and I can get, and then I come into work, my colleagues laugh because I'm like, Ralph Lauren, $5. And they're like, seriously? And I'm like, yes. So that's how I, you know, and if you donate to Savers first, they'll give you a 20% off coupon. So I will find something that I'm like, I no longer need this. And I will take it with me and I'll be like, I'm donating this. And I get my coupon and then I go and I shop and I get 20% off my already $6 nice tailored shirt that fits me. So yeah, I think I got this on Poshmark, but I think everything else I found at Savers. So
For me, I'm a Zara, Shein, Shine, I don't know how to pronounce it, I think it's Shein. I still like H&M kind of person. And I go straight to the sale rack. And one of the things that I've learned in undergrad, I used to work at JHU, is buying clothes on a budget isn't only about buying pieces that are cheap at that time or that are inexpensive at that time. Buy quality as well. So I literally have, this is one of my favorite shirts. I have a shirt from undergrad, which I will tell y'all, I know that I look 21, but yeah, a little bit older. I have a button-down shirt that is over 10 years old. It had a couple of like rips and I was able to get it stitched up, but it's excellent quality. So I saved money by having it longer. And so sometimes it's not only like amassing things that are $5 here, $10 here, $20. Yeah, go to J. Crew when they have a sale, go to Zara when they have a sale, go to some of these a little bit stores that are a tiny bit more expensive to have a sale, but you buy staples, right? You know you're gonna need a blazer. You know you're probably gonna need black, gray, navy blue pants, or you're gonna want to wear black, navy blue, what's that color, gray pants. Spend, whatever you can on good quality shoes. So that way every year, every 6 months, you're not coming out of pocket. You have something that lasts you over time. So that's one of the ways. And then like we live in a society where you can buy everything anywhere at this point. So find your stores that that work for you. And stick with it. I plan on having this from Zara. It's stretchy, this will last me, quite a bit. Also, I thought about this just now. Take care of the clothes that you have.
Yes.
Fold. My sister has taught me this. My sister is in almost close to her 50s. She still wears clothes that she had in high school because and she's a Gucci Prada type of person, but things that are not Gucci Prada from high school that she takes very good care of them. Literally read the tickets on your clothes. It says don't put it in a washing machine, hand wash it. You have to take it to the dry cleaners, take it to Zips. Take care of your clothes, buy quality that's on sale. And then that's one of the ways that you can maintain your things over a longer span of time.
And Zips cleaners is really great. We both use we use the same one. It's really wonderful because you can get a lot of items for cheap. I think the last time I went, I took 15 items, like $35. And so it's really great. And but your more expensive items, you might want to take that to another end because they're not your mom pop cleaners where they'll do good and take real strategic care of it. It's going through a machine, right? And so that's something you'll have to keep in mind too.
I just add something?
Yes.
Hi, I'm Ayana Hamilton, one of the life design educators. I also wanted to say, when it comes to clothes, and I think all of our panelists have mentioned it about fit and quality, you can buy things on sale, and with those savings, like the little things I like to do is to get things tailored. I'm telling you, like getting things tailored go a long way. So getting your pants hemmed, like I'm short and I love heels, like how my pants lay on my heel, that's important to me. And how, when I'm walking, I'm not stepping on my pants or my jeans don't have a gap in the back, the way my shoulders and my coats lay, like all of that is to me essential in the fit and the look that I'm trying to create on a budget. So tailoring goes a long way when it comes to, putting together the look that you want to present. And to me, it's worth it. And you don't have to get like everything tailored. The transferable pieces that Medina mentioned, because now we're in a society where we can wear a lot of things in different rooms and environments that we walk in. I truly believe in wearing transferable pieces. So the dress that I have on today, I can wear to work, I can wear it to networking event, I can wear it to church, I can wear it into different events. And so it's an investment for me. So I just, as you all are shopping and trying to figure out things to purchase for interviews and internships and full-time employment, you want to invest in transferable pieces that you can wear on the weekends and wear during the week.
And as somebody who always heard about getting things tailored, I was always like, that sounds expensive. Like, I don't know, custom tailored clothing, me, are you serious? And I found a lady on Facebook. I literally posted in a local group and I was like, does anybody know how to hem pants? Because I found these pants at Savers and shocking, I'm 6 feet tall. They were actually too long for me. And I was like, huh, what? And so I wrote, and she was like, yeah, I'll do it for like $7 a pair. Okay, so, got them hemmed. There were some that were actually too short that she was able to let out. And again, those staple pieces, and finding, like you were saying about, you have a dress that you can wear a lot of, like I picked shirts that have a lot of different colors. So, I could wear it like this. I could wear this with navy pants. I could wear this with, like light blue. I have like a Hopkins blue pants that I'll wear. People will be like, oh, and it looks different every time. And it's like, I literally wear the shirt every week, and I've worn this shirt every week for at least 5 years. And again, because of the quality, I used to be really into the cheap, like Walmart fashion. And after like the, 16th time that a shirt fell apart, literally while I was at work and the seam busted open. One time it happened actually when I was working at Walmart, and I bent over and my pants split down the back. And nobody told me. So I worked my whole shift with my butt hanging out, and I never went back to that Walmart because I was so ashamed.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, nobody cares about me in here either, because they're not telling me my butt's hanging out. But I was like, okay, maybe I need to look at high quality, because I noticed that, I think somebody had gifted me like a shirt from Abercrombie and Fitch, which at the time I was like, oh, I am not a prep. I am not gonna wear that. But like, it's still one of my favorite shirts because it's soft, and I've had it for almost 25 years and it still looks good. And I'm like, man, Abercrombie, why did you have to make this shirt like this? And like the edges are a little frayed, but I go to Joann's and I get that little like fabric fray glue, and I just put it on there and it stays for a little bit longer. But we have a whole internet where we can figure out how to take care of clothes, patch clothes. All my jeans have those little like iron-on patches in the middle, because thick thighs save lives, but they don't save jeans. So, and I'm like, oh, I'm on my 3rd set of these, iron-ons, but it's better than buying a whole new pair of jeans. My jeans fit me. Why would I look for, like, it's like going dating again. Why'd I look for a new pair of jeans? So
We have a tailor here, right,
Yeah.
at the event, so
Yeah.
it would be helpful to Bushlers.
Yeah.
I looked on their Instagram and I was very impressed, like they tailor everything. So it would be helpful to chat with them and get even an idea of like, how much does it cost to do things, right? Because in my mind, when I hear tailor, I'm like, it's expensive. Also because, again, context, I was introduced to tailoring through my culture. When we go to tailor clothes, no, it's a dress that's being made. So, and that costs money. So when I think about like tailoring items individually, I'm like, no, that's too expensive, but it may not be. So everyone go talk to Bushlers as a group.
As a group. What I think is great that, what I'm hearing a lot is about how it makes you feel, right? That's very important, how you're showing up into a space. If you feel good, you most likely look good, and then also you're gonna perform good, right? And so I think that's really important to keep in mind as well. And so we're a little low on time, but since I pointed you out and say you were next, you could go next, and then what we'll do, we'll continue this conversation. They're not going anywhere. They're here till 5 with us. And so we'll be around socializing. They'll be able to have conversations as well to answer any of your questions. You also have life design educators who are here to support you and have conversations with you too. But what's your question?
Oh, hi, my name is Tracy. I use she, her, hers, and I was just writing the question down, but it related to what you said before about how like choosing, how you would want to present to the space based on like the context where you want to stand out or not. And then my question was, like, how do you better show up in the professional space when you feel, some imposter syndrome, or when you feel like you don't belong? Like, how do you, like, from your experience or what you recommend, how would you, navigate that?
Yeah, Medina had something really good that I liked, and I wish I would have been told it when I was a freshman, as one where I was like, when I show up, when I was younger, I was like, I don't have anything to bring. And Medina was like, made this really great point. She's like, everyone has something to bring. It took me a while to get where she was at, but I wish that somebody had told me that even if I'm just, this freshman young person coming into the space, I have this whole life behind me, all of these little things that I've picked up, that I have learned, ways I think that are different, right? So when you show up in different spaces, you have something to add, because we're not all robots, and we don't all think the same way, and we don't all have the same lived experiences, and you bring that to the table. And I think part of it's also just, taking a moment, and this is why, I run a little anxious, but myself, I do bring something to the table. I do have lived experiences. And, if you also battle with like, oh, am I being too egotistical? No, you're not. You are bringing something to the table. You have something new, you have a new perspective, and lean into that. It's gonna be uncomfortable. And sometimes you're gonna be in networking spaces and you're gonna be talking about yourself and you're like, oh my God, this is so weird, but lean into it. It is uncomfortable, but you have these things, you're bringing them to the table. And if you are trying to get experience, it's also like, hey, I'm really excited about like what you're doing. How can I be involved? This is something that has interested me because of blah and blah, so it's really like, why you know where you're going is important is because you're like, okay, these are things that I can say or prep my mind to think about as I'm in this space, especially if you do get a little bit more anxious and you're like blank on the spot, you kind of have like these things that you've rehearsed or you've thought about already. So in the moment, you can just kind of lean back on that. So it's really just kind of thinking, I do have something to give, regardless of where I am or my walk in life is. And it's really hard to ingrain that in yourself when you are like young and fresh and new into the environment, because you're like, oh, these people have been here forever. Like, what am I gonna do? Like, what am I bringing? And it's like, you're a totally new person who's grown up in a totally different time, who's experienced totally different new things. So, like you do have something to share and you do have something to bring. And so, lean into that a little bit. It's going to be uncomfortable, but once you break that ice for yourself, you're going to like hit your step and it's just going to feel better. And you're going to be like, okay, I know now what I'm doing and I know how I want to be in that space.
Yeah, there's a resource I want everyone to write down. It's a book called Brag, in the ending 2 G's or 1, I'm not sure. The author's name is Peggy Klaus, Klaus. The book talks about, the full title of the book is Brag, the Art of Tooting Your Own Horn Without Blowing It. And the book basically talks about how you can talk about yourself without sounding like you're bragging. The book specifically has a questionnaire. There's 2 types. There's one for like seasoned professionals, but there's also a college student questionnaire. And it'll ask you things like, what was your latest accomplishment? Or what's something that you feel really good about over the last couple of weeks or however long? What's something that you've done that's new? But after you completed the 12 questions in the questionnaire, you essentially have like the outline of an elevator pitch. But outside of that, you're now able to see all the things that you have accomplished, and you will feel good about yourself. It's like, oh snap, somebody should give me like an Oscar because I'm dope. Like clearly. And so whenever you're, Tracy, was it? Yes. Whenever you're walking into a new space, you can now reflect on the answers that you wrote down in that questionnaire to be like, okay, yeah, I am that girl. I do belong here. And then from that, you also think about other things, right? Like, I cannot stress enough, that, how old are you all? Like 18, 19, 20, however, you have lived on this earth and you have done things, you have experienced things. You can take all of that and turn it into some kind of lesson that's valuable to someone who wants to be where you are right now, who wants to go where you're going to go tomorrow or wherever. And so like using tools like the questionnaire will help you kind of get a jump start, and then you keep building from there. Like, okay, if I were, another way to kind of do that, also thinking about what did I learn from last year? What did I experience last year that has helped me move forward today? And that kind of helps you kind of keep going and kind of walk into spaces and not feel as much of an imposter. Side note, IP kind of lasts for forever. Yes. It's one of those things that you're kind of fighting like a girl in the street for the rest of your life, but grab her by the hair, punch that girl in the face. Like it's something that you continue to work at over time.
And understanding if you're young, if you're talking to people who are older and have more lived experience, you might be like, I don't really know, because like what I just discovered, they probably discovered 30 years ago because they're, older than me. But also what you may be telling them is something that they wish that they had had. Or they're like, oh man, I wish I could be that age again and experience that again. Or gosh, I wish I would have had that opportunity when I was young. Like that is so cool. I think from like the outfit perspective, I have definitely missed the assignment on sometimes when I walk into a networking space and I'm like, oh, I now stand out because I'm not looking the way that everybody else is. And I'm like, for the most part, I'm like, conformity is a social disease, but sometimes because I also, kind of err on the side of super anxious and like will leave a space before I, engage with people. But what I've learned to do is say to, if I'm invited to a networking event, I'm like, okay, can you tell me more about like what to expect? And they're like, oh, it's gonna be a bunch of people like chilling and hanging out, but it's like, okay, but what is the attire? Business. Okay, can you define that for me? And it's so annoying to people sometimes, but I'm like, I need to know, define business. Because business here is different than business in corporate America, is different than the medical field. It's different everywhere. Okay, what's business? Oh, like church clothes. Okay, so that's also not helpful to me because like, I did grow up in a church that was very highfalutin church. Like again, you didn't show up without your winter coat. But then if I went to a Universalist Unitarian church, like ripped up jeans and tie-dye shirt is church clothes. Or like I wasn't Christian, so like what is that? Like let's even talk about how that frames things. And so it's like, okay, but what does that mean? Business casual. And I advise people this also when they're in a new work environment and you're sitting down with your supervisor and going over expectations, you will inevitably hear about the dress code. Dress code is business attire, except on Fridays, it's business casual. Okay, can you please define this for me? Well, neat and acceptable. Okay, again, what does that mean? Like, can we define this again? Because what I think is neat and acceptable is like, my clothes are clean and maybe I don't have any little strings hanging off. But again, that's also like jeans and a t-shirt. That's neat and acceptable for me. And so it's like, okay, do you mean like slacks? Do you mean this? Do you mean that? And this is from a lived experience, have them put it in writing. Because one of the ways that professionalism shows up in the workplace is it's that gatekeeping method, the way that dress code in schools is, policing people's bodies, people's sizes, people's, ability to afford clothes, all that stuff. And so they can say, oh, we're gonna ding you on this on your evaluation because it's not professional. And like, unfortunately, the Crown Act didn't pass, right? The Crown Act about like,
Not federally.
Not federally, yeah, that's why I was like, but the Crown Act is talking about how you can wear your hair any way is because, that's the way that people police is it's like, oh, your hair's not professional. Or, I have people that are like, I've considered, showing up to my interview looking like this because that would be acceptable in mainstream white society. And I'm like, I show up not dressed in a dress and hose and whatever, because I need to know that the way that I dress all the time is going to be acceptable in that space. So put it in writing so that when you come to your evaluation, if there's anybody that tries to say you're not dressing professional, it's like, okay, this is how we define professionalism when I came in here, and this is how I am dressing. Because if it's just kind of like, oh, casual, again, I had a colleague who showed up in like literally jean cutoffs every day and shared an office with me, and I looked like this. And so it's like, who defines that and what? So it's kind of that like CYA, okay, I need you to tell me very specifically when you say professional, what does that mean?
This kind of brings up a really good point about professionalism and decolonizing it. What does that mean? Who has defined professionalism through the years? And what does that mean when you're a person of color, or you're different, or you're underrepresented, or if you're low income? What does that mean? And I think that's really important also to think about when you're young, because sometimes when you are boxed into this sort of white version of what professionalism means, you get anxious, you get nervous, and you're like freaking out about like what self-fulfilling prophecy am I gonna get myself into, because how we show up, professionalism is, how we dress, how we behave, how we talk. And so it's sort of like, that's sort of another layer that, students have to go through when they are underrepresented, when they are diverse, when they are people of color, is kind of like, I already feel like I'm at a disadvantage because I already have to start policing myself before I get there. So it's like reminding myself, what can I do? What can I say? What does that mean, right? And so it's also like creating more inclusive spaces. And as you keep taking steps, like this is an amazing space that you have now. And as you keep growing, also like creating a space to have those conversations and kind of challenging what professionalism means and why are we thinking about it that way and who's making that decision and who was at the table when that decision was made and who's saying this is what it should be and this is how you should react. And so it's just also kind of, you know, showing up in those spaces and being like, you know, I'm here, this is like who I am. So challenge a little bit what professionalism is right now, right? What does that mean? We're becoming more diverse. So there has to be a time where we sit back and we're like redefining what professionalism is, decolonizing it and recentering it around the new voices and the diversity that we have currently. Because I know that it can eat me up, you know, as a student, when you're fresh and new and you're like, oh, I already have to think about this other thing that I'm gonna do inadvertently because I'm not thinking about it because it's just how I live, but people are already gonna make assumptions and opinions. And when you create all of that inside yourself, you know, I've had friends who are like, you know, we had a student in our first orientation in med school who was a Black man, and he talked about how I was so worried that I was going to be perceived as aggressive in the patient rooms. And then it happened to him where a patient was like, you're being aggressive, even though he wasn't. So those are things that people of color have to think about when you show up in these spaces. And professionalism also is, you know, another aspect of that when we're showing up for more diverse people in our spaces is how do we support? How do we make sure those spaces are inclusive? How do we make sure that student is okay? You know, because oftentimes, and you know, we talked about this in medical ethics, it's always been like, well, you know, the professional reaction, you know, that student should have done this or should have done that. Well, it's like, who is deciding what and how that person should react or how they feel comfortable? So, you know, challenge it, think about it for yourself, think about, well, where is this coming from and what does that mean? And who said it, who made it, and what that means to you.